Hi everyone and welcome to the latest tournament review. So on the weekend we attended and hosted Gauntlet Round 3 down at Irresistible Force in Logan. And tonight I am joined with the wonderful Mr. Matt Gammie. Matt, how you going today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How about yourself?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty
Yeah,
good.
recovered after the weekend.
Oh,
Feeling
it's
good?
always a big weekend, especially when you got to go away and drive a bit for the tournament.
Yeah.
But it's always good to kind of get away, see some different people, see the new faces, see what they've been working on, and watch some awesome games. So now, unfortunately, you're a bit different from our previous guests. You didn't
Mm.
manage to go undefeated in this event.
No.
But you did roll in with a really, really impressive 2-1. But the award that you did walk away with was Best Painted. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
congratulations for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well deserved. Your Sylvaneth army is exceptional. Having
Thank you
seen it
very
in
much.
person at a couple events now, you only missed out on the painting at the second round of the Gauntlet by a single vote. So
Yeah.
you're
Yep.
definitely one of the contenders for the best army of the series.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
before we start deep diving into Gammie's background and his games, I just wanted to give a shout out to the other guys who did well at the recent event. So the overall winner once again was Dave Kerr with his Stormcast. He is an exceptional player, and every time we see him get on the table, we are reminded exactly why. He is considered one of the top players, at least in the local scene, if not in Australia. Coming in second was Jacob, again with his Sons of Behemoth. Fantastic player, really played the scenarios in a lot of games, so definitely played that more big brain versus just jump forward and kill stuff. And it shows with his scores and how he's doing. And third, I do actually have to issue a bit of an apology out to Sean. I put the scores in incorrectly and
Ah,
gave him the loss in round 3 when actually he had the win. So he actually came third.
there you go.
So sorry about that, Sean. But you're updating the series points and you're updating the scores. So hopefully that you see this video and you're going to come to more events and you're not going to. I haven't completely burnt you. So we've got Gammie tonight as the best painted, and then the best sports was won by Nicole. So absolutely lovely person to play games against. It is not surprising in the slightest that she fairly consistently walks away with that award. So on to our guest now. So Gammie, how did you get into the hobby?
Well, it started way back when I was 14, so that's coming up to nearly 20 years now, which is scary. Yeah, so about 19 years in the hobby. I actually started in 40k. So it was just high school. Happened to see one of my mates walking past with a Space Marine book. I think he had a Dark Angels book. And yeah, we got into chatting about it, and pretty much I jumped on board with the Chaos Marines and played heaps of 40k all the way through up until 7th edition, and then started playing 8th edition fantasy. Um, Played around with some different armies then, so mainly orcs and goblins, and got into wood elves towards the end of 8th edition. And then Age of Sigmar dropped, and so I got to enjoy the dark ages of the Age of Sigmar, which was, trialing all the new rules, talking to players where, I was running Bretonians as well, so if you had a chalice on the table, you got extra points and stuff like that. So it was a pretty wild time, the early days of Age of Sigmar, and then yeah, pretty much been in the competitive scene from the start. As soon as it started in Age of Sigmar, used to go to tournaments regularly in 40k and also fantasy. So always enjoyed a tournament, mainly for getting to know people in the scene. It was more for me a social thing rather than a competitive thing. But obviously, there's a competitive fire there as well, which you can't get rid of. So
Yep.
Age of Sigmar, I've played Bone Splitters for a long time, Wanderers. I always like to say I came 19th out of 106 players, 110 players back in CanCon a few years ago. So that's pretty good with Wanderers. So
Oh,
take that every day of the year.
that'd be what, top 10%?
Yeah, top 10%. A lot of people were surprised by that as well because Wanderers were not on the scene at all. But yeah, unfortunately, Wanderers have kind of gone by the wayside in Cities of Sigmar, and as a result, I've found myself looking at Sylvaneth. So yeah,
Yeah.
enjoying them.
Yeah, no, very nice, very nice. And I know that's where I first met you at a tournament. We played at GoldCon a couple of years ago.
We did.
It
Yep.
was a fantastic game. Um, And since then, we've hung out at a couple of other tournaments, got to know each other a bit better, and yeah, it's just kind of a really good example of you meet someone once at a tournament, you play a game with them, you spend 3 hours with them, and then a year later, you're perfectly happy just to hang out, have lunch,
Absolutely,
just catch up, and it's amazing what this hobby can do to bring people together.
Yeah.
So
It's the best part about the hobby for sure.
yeah. So you said that you played Wanderers back at the start, and now you're playing Sylvaneth. Have you always kind of been into the kind of the wood elfy theme, or is it just you're a sucker for a C tier army and you just dare to prove it can do better?
Yeah, look, well, when I got into Wood Elves, it was at the 8th edition book dropped, and they were pretty broken at that stage. So they had True Flight arrows, and everyone really hated the True Flight arrows. It was a good time, but I've really always liked the, I guess, the balance that Wood Elves kind of possess, in the sense that with the fluff side of things, they're meant to embrace the dark and light side of things, and that was represented in 8th edition really well, where they were able to run both shadow and light magic, and the high elves would always run light, and then dark elves shadow. So I really like that they're kind of like the tipping the balance. They could go good, become good, or they could go bad. I was talking to Nicole in our first game about dryads, and saying that their fluff is that they actually come into the cities of Sigmar and steal children in the middle of the night to turn into dryads and tree revs, and she was a bit shocked by that background, and I thought, well, it's Sylvaneth have that little bit of dark to them, which is pretty cool.
And if that's what people have to do to stay competitive in the mortal realms, then that's what you've got to do to stay competitive.
Children.
So
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, Sylvaneth for me, the reason why I got into them was the model range. I also like the challenge to an army as well. I mean, I've played Bone Splitters and Khorne for the last 4 years, and they're not looking great at the moment. So Bone Splitter's a bit better than Khorne at the moment, but yeah, I always like a challenge, and Sylvaneth have been touted as one of the worst armies in Age of Sigmar for a while, and I really like that as a challenge to say, well, I don't think they're as bad as people think, and yeah, starting to show that in the numbers as well, which is pretty cool. So.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you went 2-1 on the weekend. Like, it was definitely a good showing by you. I know I watched a decent chunk of your games, and it very much felt like that you were playing more the control aspect of the game. So, like, you weren't just trying to go toe-to-toe with everyone. You're like, cool, there's a tree in your way. I'm now over here. Have fun trying to play my game, but I'm going to play it better than you.
Exactly, and I think that's the thing that I'm really enjoying about Sylvaneth, is that I know my game plan. I know the backup plans that I've got for Sylvaneth. I play into their strength, which is save stacking, and that in itself is a really cool mechanic. Their lack of mortal wound save is a big problem, but obviously, like you were mentioning, the tree side of things, having that as an element that I really like to it. There's a lot of levels to Sylvaneth that a lot of people, I played Jacob at the last Gauntlet, and he, in his interview, actually said it was a bit of a confusing game because there was a lot going on, and I try to explain it as much as possible, but I think because they are quite a janky army, people enjoy the games, which is good, but they also feel a bit kind of, okay, he's playing his game, and it becomes a bit of a mind game in that sense, which is a lot of fun for me. So.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely different to just kind of the straight up, I've just got a straight up fighting army, you got a straight up fighting army.
Yep.
Let's just push them forward and smash face and see who wins.
Correct.
Whereas you're very much, you're all over the place, you're playing to the objectives, you're almost playing to your opponent's weaknesses instead of purely just playing to your strengths. Like it's very much a very high skill ceiling of an army, in my opinion.
Absolutely,
And I think that watching what you were doing on the weekend, it definitely shows that. There was like a couple of times where either through absolutely impeccable planning or pure luck, some of the rules, they just worked out perfectly, and that just twisted the whole games. But run me through, what did you take in Sylvaneth?
Yep. So when people talk about Sylvaneth, the glades that they have, I've played around with Winterleaf before, which is getting some extra combat prowess, which is a bit nice. But I've gone with Nalroot, which most
Yep.
people tend to know with Sylvaneth, which is wizard heavy. They like to play into the wizards. You get reroll ones to hit. That's in shooting and combat with, if you're nearby wizards in Nalroot, and I think that's in itself is a really strong mechanic.
Yeah.
So in that, I've kind of lent into that with Alariel. Had to run the Everqueen herself, so
Yep.
she's had a few iterations. I think she's at a really good space. I'll talk about her in my games, but I would say that with Alariel, if you can't one-shot her, she's a really difficult piece to move. Yeah, she's pretty great. 740 points. A lot of people talk about that as a bit of a price hike, but she does have summoning, so she can summon once per game. And I always, I've summoned 3 Kurnoths with bows, just because shooting's a great space to be at the moment. So I've got Alariel. Then I've got a Branch Wraith as my general, so she's the one that's known for summoning dryads, mainly there to summon dryads. That's the only reason why. In Nalroot, she gets to roll 3d6 with her cast and then discard the lowest dice, which is pretty nice.
That's very nice.
Makes it a bit more reliable for her summoning. She's also, anytime she successfully casts a spell, any unit held within 18 can heal D3. Becomes a bit of a factor in my army. Alariel has a healing mechanic of 2d6 in my hero phase. She knows the entire spell lore, so she can also heal d6 with regrowth as a spell. And then her aura that she's got is wholly within 30. Everyone heals d3 wounds, so it's a really nice sort of makes up for the damage that I take.
Yeah, you're really just trying to crush Nurgle's dreams there, aren't you? So.
Oh, absolutely. It's the best playing Nurgle players who see me and just heal all the disease points. They're very confused by it. I love it. Then I've gone with Drycha. Drycha Hammerdreth, really solid unit. I never used to run her in my lists, and it wasn't until a couple of months ago I picked her up, and she's definitely, her and Alariel are definitely damage dealers in the army. 20 shots a turn. Doing mortal wounds on 6s, rend 1 on those shots as well. She's a really nice piece, good in combat as well. Can be killed quite easily, but she's a great little piece. Also a wizard, so far everything's a wizard. And then I've got the Tree Lord Ancient, which I think's a mainstay of the army as well, mainly because he gets a free wood once per game, just as a rocking up. There's no CP to be spent or anything, which is really nice. And then his command ability is the really important part in the army, which is a +1 save bubble, and that can actually be put through the Kurnoth Hunters as well, so it becomes a bit of a board wide +1 save just for spending a CP, which is a really nice mechanic.
And that's huge. That's like one of the better command abilities in the game.
Easily one of the better ones. And he's a wizard as well, so basically rocking as many spells as possible, mainly on healing, not a lot of damage output. Alariel's there for her damage output with her spell, which I think is really solid. It's for those that don't know, whatever the casting value is, you roll a dice for each of the casting value, and then on 3+ it's a mortal wound, so it's a bit better than the Warsong Rev that most people like to run in Sylvaneth. So then I've got 3 units of 5 Tree Revs as battle lines, so they are really solid for teleporting anytime, as long as their flute's alive, so they can teleport in and out of combat, not into combat, but out of combat. Really solid, again, just for getting battle tactics if I need late game, particularly going into opponents' deployment zones, that sort of thing. And then I've got 3 Kurnoths with scythes, so again, just there for the mechanic of putting through the command ability, and also Kurnoths with scythes, 3 of them, 9 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 2 damage, d3 each. It's a really solid, profile there for them. They're really nice. 5 wounds each as well, so they count as 2 models. They're a really good unit for 215 points.
They definitely punch on. They definitely punch on.
And then rounding out the whole list, I've got 5 Dark Riders, which a lot of people, when I talk to Sylvaneth players, they're a bit confused by that choice. I have 115 points in the unit in the list left over, and Dark Riders for me, I found I needed another screen. It became really important in Game 2, which I'll talk about briefly, but it's 10 wounds on a 4-up save. They've got shooting as well. They're a really quick unit, but it's more the cavalry base and the actual presence on the board is really important. So I found really solid 115 points spent on those Dark Riders. Plus, I get to use the Glade Riders from Warhammer Fantasy, and they've come really nicely with the whole army. It kind of ties in really well. So.
Yeah. Well, that's reason enough there. Like, there's a lot of armies that I see out there at the moment where it's just like, these models are good, but the models themselves are absolutely beautiful. And so it's so they're going in. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's the list. 2,000 points. I don't ever run a Triumph because there's no point. I'll never get it. But always prize sorceries, so try and keep the lists alive. And it's pretty easy to do with the list because my general, who is the Branch Wraith, if she's in the forest, can't be targeted unless they're basically in the forest with her. So it's a really nice ability there with the Sylvaneth Wildwoods. So yeah,
no, excellent. It sounds really good, and it seemed to go really good on the table. So walk us through game one.
Yeah, game one came up against Nicole. So Nicole and I have played at many events together, usually towards the end of an event, because her and I tend to go toe to toe with our results, which is pretty cool. She's been rocking Nighthaunt for a long time now, real Nighthaunt diehard, so I'm sure she's very excited for her book, which is in the near future. So she was running Nagash, which it was already a bit of PTSD for me because round 3 at the last Gauntlet, I came up against Chris Eddy, who was running pretty much the same list. I think the only difference was Nicole runs Spirit Hosts instead of the Cavalry.
So the Hex Wraiths instead.
Hex Wraiths, yep. So plenty of little MSU units on the board. Nagash is a big problem. And that was pretty clear when I was given first turn, moved everything up, kind of took objectives, got up on points, and then she handed dust to Valarial in turn 1. So
that's
pretty big blow. Big blow. As I said before, the way to get rid of Valarial is by one-shotting her, and there's nothing better than just flat out just killing her instantly. Full 16 wounds gone, all gone straight away. So that really put me on the back foot. Yeah.
The big question though, was it the left hand or the right hand?
It was the dice was in the right hand, so I picked her left hand. So it's a problem. It's great little list. Obviously through the portals as well, so that was how that was done. And again, Nicole is a good player. She knows what she's doing. Knew Alariel is a problem, and as a result, took her out pretty quickly, which was good. Managed to get my summoning off before that though, which was nice. Which helped out because I then actually won priority, and I gave it away because she was tied up in combat with 3 Kurnoths with sides with Nagash. So I kind of felt a bit okay in that, in the sense that if she wanted to use all the mortal wounds from the arcane bolts that he can do, happy for that to be done on Kurnoth hunters as opposed to the rest of the army, which is the important part. So Drycha, as I said, really important. She was sitting on my right hand objective in combat with a lot of spirit hosts, managed to clear them off. Did a bit of a sneaky, teleported out of combat with the trees, and in the next turn killed Nagash with shooting. So that was nice how it was done. The Kurnoths with sides were unreal. In the first turn, they managed to do something like 9 wounds to Nagash in combat. The Ren 2 damage T3 is pretty great. And then Nicole's saves were not great. So it was a really nice spot to be in. I felt probably not okay with the giving away of the turn once it started to unfold. I thought maybe it was a bit of a mistake, but managed to clear Nagash, which then gave me a bit more control with the spells, because obviously my army needs the spells to go off, and Nagash is flat out refusing that, which against Chris in the last event, he was rolling nothing below a 12, I believe, so it was on his dice, so that was 15 that he's unbinding everything on. So that's how the dice are sometimes, and Nicole really fought to the end. It came down to Lady Alinda surviving on 1 wound from the Tree Lord Ancients in combat for me to get a battle tactic, but I think that ended up being a 18-2 victory to me, which was great time. Nicole got my sports votes, which is why she obviously got best sports. She would have got the same from all of her opponents, and definitely deserving. She was great throughout. We spoke about the list a bit. She's very interested in Sylvaneth. It was actually her first model she ever built was a Tree Lord Ancient. So, it was pretty cool. We were having chats about it in the middle of the game, and she said summed up Sylvaneth perfectly. She said, they seem to play every phase, but they don't play it better than other armies. And I think that's pretty spot on in the way of describing them, is that they can do a lot. Alariel not being on the table was a big blow, but Drycha managing to just have a bit of board presence, and then once Nagash was dead, I could summon the Dryads that I needed to put on objectives, and it was pretty enjoyable game. So got the victory on that one.
Yeah, well, that's good. Like, it sounds like it was a fantastic start to the day. So we went from game 1 into lunch. Lunch is always one of the most enjoyable parts of the day as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
No one doesn't like getting pizza, so...
No, well, that's it. We're all having pizza. I think Corey was there at that point, and we were all talking about World of Warcraft, so we're having mad chats about that, which was great. So, there's nothing better than, having some good chats about what's going on. Obviously, talking about new Fire Slayers and Deepkin. Lunch is a great time for getting to know people at the event as well, which is awesome. And
it's great that, like, you can go to events like these and go to other ones, and I really like putting on lunch as part of the event because it gets everyone in that same room. It's not everyone's just disappearing off with the people they already know. You're standing next to people that you maybe played in the first round, or you played at a different event, and you're getting to know them, you're chatting, and you're just making friends. So
I think I said it to Tim or Gabe or someone who I was talking to after the event, and said that what was really nice was hearing two players that were down towards the bottom tables towards the end of the event. They were having their game, and two guys I'd never seen before, and they were having some great chats about Stormcast. And one of the players said, "Oh, what was that character that you were using? My mate's just picked up Stormcast, and he's really interested in seeing, the combinations within that." And that's that. I said, that's what this game's about, is seeing those new people and hearing those interactions, because that was us 5-10 years ago, where we're trying to work out the game and unpack what's good and what's not. And they were having a great time down. I think it was Cruel Boys versus Stormcast. So there's nothing cooler than that at the moment.
Yeah, that would have been Barry and Nick, I think it was. Them playing. Yeah, no, they're both really good guys. So yeah. So after lunch, we go into game 2. It was tooth and nail, and this was an absolute nail biter for you.
Yeah, it was from the start. So I came up against Sean Muller. Sean is a regular on Stormcast. We were talking at lunchtime, actually. We didn't know we were playing against each other, but just talking about how he was feeling bad that he was running Long Strikes and Fulminators, and said, I've been running Stormcast for 5 years, 6, even nearly 6 or 7 years now, however long Age of Sigmar has been around, 6 years. So, he's been running them from the start. Every event, has not played anything else, and, I said to him, you can't feel guilty when the army's good. There's nothing wrong with that. So, Sean was running Stormhost, which was he was dropping down units. So luckily you were there, Henry, because we started turn 1. I believe we were partway through my magic phase, and you came over and said, "Where's the rest of your army, Sean?" He said, "Oh, it's in the sky," and I naturally was just thinking, "Yep, that's fine." He said, no, it's tooth and nail, and straight away, poor Sean, he panicked because he said, I know where your army is now, and he said, I feel really dodgy that I'm putting down units, knowing where your army is. He said, you can redeploy whatever you like. I said, don't be silly. It was never going to change for me, but it was funny because he was just at that backup stage of, hang on, I've never had to think about not just having my army drop down where it needed to. So that was great because he was running Prosecutors as his, Judicators as his battle line, 2 units of 2 Fulminators and the 6 Long Strikes. Also a big guy on Dragon as well.
Stardrake.
So, it was not the 6 Long Strikes for, or 6 Dragons, whatever you're seeing these days. Fulminators were still there. They hit like a freight train and know exactly what they do. For me, what I felt this game was about was denying Sean his ability to double shoot. Once per game, he can volley fire with the long strikes, or Judicators if he wishes, but it's always long strikes. But I felt if I could control that, and because he had his teleport through the banner, through the Relictor, there was a lot there where I guess I know how the army plays. This was the first time we had the Hunters involved, so this was since the battle scroll had dropped last week. And it was a really interesting game for me to see what the benefits are in running a Hunter's Army. Sylvaneth now count as Hunters, so they get bonus points for killing those units on the scroll now. So for me, it was really interesting. So I kind of tried to block it out with Tree Revs and also the 5 Dark Riders. 5 Dark Riders were amazing this game. They really spread out the table and pretty much just cut out half the board. So I think he came over a couple of times to see how the game was going, and I really used that control of the Dark Riders to stop the teleport from getting close to Alariel and Drycha, which was kind of the big things for me.
Yep.
Alariel's shot at 6 damage, just flat out. I think a lot of people are terrified by that, and understandably, because 2s and 2s, Rend 2 and damage 6. There's not a lot out there that does that.
Yeah, and there's not a lot you can do to stop that either.
No. And the good thing is that it's 2s rerolling 1s because of Malroot. So, it's really comes, like, I feel it's one of those things where I feel it's a solid, character snipe. I can kill whatever I need to. The Lord Relictor was going to be my target, but Sean was quite clever in the way that he wanted to protect him, which is fair. And I just used it as a kind of a block out units. Fulminators came up, tried to take objectives. I killed the Fulminators as they were kind of drip feeding to me, which was giving me 2 points every time that I was killing them. And yeah, it came down to the wire. I had 2 models left, which you were there at this point. Tree Lord Ancient and the Branch Wraith. Sorry. Yep. Sean was trying to get the two units in my deployment zone, and it really came down to a charge and his Star Drake base size not actually allowing him to get into my deployment zone. So it was a really tight game. He failed, the poor guy. He failed a 2-up prayer twice in a row. So for the teleport, I said to him, I'm not going to lie, I was definitely hoping that wasn't, that you weren't going to get that off. But it really came down to split firing long strikes, and he killed the Tree Lord Ancient, which was really good, got him some extra points. We managed to math it out and said if you get the general, then that pretty much is the game. And it came down to the general being left on 1 wound, the Star Drake going to shoot her, and there was a forest just in the way, and draw a line of sight of 3 inches, and he could not see her. So it was really came down to Sylvaneth. I guess it wasn't gamey, but it was just sort of that. I guess you saw the value of Wildwoods and the abilities in there. So and that managed to get me a couple of points in the win, and that's where the actual Hunter's War Scroll managed to win me the game, because I won, I think, by 4 points. So that was pretty much exactly the 2 Fulminator units that I managed to kill. So it was really interesting. I was really happy with the outcome. Sean played like an absolute legend. I did fluster him a little bit towards the end. I think he kept saying to me, "You're playing your game, and I'm not used to." I think he said in turn 3, he said, "I've never not just done what I needed to." He said, "I'm always like," he said, "You've really got me thinking about what I need to," because Alariel was there and Drycha's there, and he kept saying they can teleport through the trees, they can get to where they need to, and again, it was about that control, so making sure I was using the trees and getting where I needed to, which was really important. So
and that game, like whenever I was watching it, it really kind of showed the power of Sylvaneth, where you might not be able to beat him at any one particular aspect of the game, but you were pushing him in every aspect of the game. You were forcing him to react to you. So he's and like Sean is a really good Stormcast player. He's been playing for years. But most of his games go pretty much the same way. He knows what he's doing. He's done it before. You're just like, nah, here's a spanner. Have fun. You've got to now come up with all of this on the fly, under pressure. And how it turned out is he forgot about the Wildwood special rules, which when you're playing against Sylvaneth and they've got all of the different things that you've got to try and to take into account. I've got to screen out over here to stop the teleport. I've got to make sure I kill this because otherwise they're going to heal up. I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. And it's just stacking and stacking and stacking. And that's where people make mistakes. And that's where Sylvaneth can show their strength and then pull it out, like what happened.
Yep, and it was definitely a great game. Sean and I actually have been several events together, and we'd never played, so that was actually the first time we played each other. So
Oh, that's really good.
yeah, he said that when the game started. He said, I'm really excited because we've never got to play each other, and it was a really solid game, which I couldn't ask for any better. So
Yeah, no, that's always what you want. Like, win or lose, if it's a good game, that you've achieved what you went to do. So
absolutely,
yeah. So you're 2-0 with Sylvaneth. You're about to prove everyone in the world wrong, and you're going to say we had a battle scroll update, and now it's a top tier army.
Yep, correct.
And then you went into round 3.
Yes, up against Dave Kerr with his worlds list. So, Dave and I have played several times. We've actually played this matchup, so I went into that game with no qualms about how the result was going to go. But what I will say is that I went into it with the hope of doing some damage and seeing what I was capable of doing if I pushed the list as far as possible. And I think if you play a C tier army like Sylvaneth, and you're playing at the top table for first place, most of the time. Like I said to the boys afterwards, I said I couldn't have asked for any better really with Sylvaneth. It's nothing more enjoyable than sitting in that position prior to the game. Dave, it's classic Dave. We're setting up, and he said, "Yep." So my wizard, I've got the arcane tome on my guy, so I'm taking the spell that allows me to ignore line of sight, blocking terrain. And I said, "Oh," I said, "Why are people not running more of that spell? It's ridiculous." And then I'm talking to Scott, who was next to me, and I'm saying, "Dave's running this ridiculous spell. Why is no one else running it?" And then he, about halfway through me deploying, said, "That's not an actual spell, right?" So he was already in my head. He was being classic Dave. And I guess the thing with Dave is he actually didn't want to run the list at Gauntlet. He was saying if he had another army painted, he was trying to run Cruel Boys, trying to run Big War, but he had the army from Vic GT the week before, which he went second at 5-0. It's a solid list. He's been training for months with it because he's going to Worlds next month with the Australian team. So, for me, I said to Dave, I said, I know how this is going to go, but I want to see what happens. And what I will say is that it was never a guaranteed win, but I got into a position in turn 1 going into turn 2 where there was one long strike left on 1 wound. I lost Drytra in the first turn, so she got shot off by the long strikes and dragons, because Dave, after our last game, saw exactly what Drytra does and went, she needs to die.
Yes.
And there's, I guess, deployment for me. I could have pushed it back, and there would have been a bit if I was clever with deployment. But again, the army punishes you, Dave punishes you as a player, and that's what I was looking for. So Alariel moved in position. She was feeling pretty good. Had got herself the battle tactic for kill battle line. I did get the long strikes down to 1 wound, which was a shame because then Dave had no CP left, so he had to roll the battle shock and roll the 1 naturally. So, I just said these are things where Dave has always said it. You're better to be lucky than good. And we rolled off for the turn, and he won priority and killed Alariel in the next turn. So again, it was just an uphill. I just kind of thought, that was it. But again, Alariel can retreat and charge and shoot. That's something that she got as an update in the Kragnos book, I believe. So Dave said to me, if we got the priority, I was in a better position to kill the long strikes, get myself 3 points there because he's reinforced them for 2, and then I kill them with the hunter, so that gets me 3 points. Could have moved out, killed his Knight Draconis, moved into the dragons, and potentially cleared some dragons off there as well, because Alariel on the charge does mortal wounds on the charge, but she's also got her stink finger, which can auto slay stuff as well, and her beetle has the potential to do 20 damage. So she's pretty good beat stick, but again, it came down to a couple of dice rolls, and Dave summed it up perfectly, because we kind of got to turn 4, moved into position. I managed to keep my general alive, so I got 3 points out of it, but it was a resounding victory, 20-0 to him. We spoke about it after the game, and he said when he is lucky, it's oppressive for my army, whereas if I'm lucky, he said you kind of need to be lucky the entire time to keep up with his list, because it's a world's list, and it's pretty honed to do exactly what it needs to. And, he messaged me after the event because he had to leave early, so I managed to pick up his first place trophy. I have not given it to him yet, so I'll probably hold on to that. But he messaged me afterwards and he said, look, to Tim and myself, we're in a group chat together, and he said, look, man, he said, you're in a really good position going into turn 2, into 3. You had me on a back foot, which is really good for Sylvaneth. He said you couldn't have played it better. He said it's just that luck goes your way sometimes, and that's fair. So, it's a great list. Dave is an excellent player. Love playing him all the time. He's such a great player to play against. He's one of those guys where you can be getting absolutely flogged, but he's doing it in a way that you don't feel like you're going to crack the sads sort of thing. So,
and that's it. Like, if someone of Dave's caliber is bringing a strong list, especially one that he's been practicing with extensively, then he's going to do well with it. It's like if you get really lucky, you can really compete and you can really push. And even coming up against a list like that in the last round is like a huge compliment to your list writing ability and your generalmanship on the day. Especially with an army that is definitely considered to be one of the worst ones, up against one that is... This is a list that is designed to go with the absolute top tier and compete.
Yeah. And, it's a list that won the Warhammer Worlds Open on the weekend. It's a pretty... I don't want to say cookie cutter list, because I think Dave has actually made some really important changes to it that makes it different. It's subtle to what other people would see, but... Again, he's top player, and I said to him I'd love to see the list, so my list at a 2-day event, just to see how well it would go. If it could go the 4-1, go the distance, but ideally 4-1 would be a perfect run for me. I know it's not a 5-0, but it's 4-1's a really good position to be in with Sylvaneth. So I was stoked 2-1. Considering the last gauntlet I went to, I think I went 1-2. And it's interesting because the last gauntlet I played Giants round 2 and the Nagash Nighthaunt round 3, and 2 really solid armies. I think that weekend in other events around the world, there was the Kragnos Gatebreaker build, there was the Nagash Nighthaunt build going around and cleaning up events as well, so I kind of felt a bit better about it. But again, luck changes things, and I can, got the win against Gary, but in the other 2 games you feel like it's an uphill battle. Really interesting in the new Hunter update though, because I play against Giants and each Giant's worth 4 points for me every time I kill it, so it's interesting position to be in there. So
and we were talking after your game 3 kind of about that and how we felt how that would swing how like the overall wider meta would develop, and both of us were kind of the opinion that it's not going to bring them up to just a cookie cutter. Now you've got an S tier army, it's now going to be amazing and easy, but it's going to be just that extra tool in the toolbox that you can get good players like yourself to go, hey, I can pick up another couple of points here, I can pick up another couple of points there, and like in game 2, it can turn the game. It can change it from a tie to a win, or a slight loss to a slight victory.
Correct. Yeah, and if we didn't have the battle scroll update, I would have lost by 4 points. So it's it would have been a draw. But it's that thing of there's a lot to it. I want to kill the Fulminators, and I want to kill the Long Strikes, and I want to kill the Dragons. I want to kill the Gate Breakers anyway. Like, that's, for me, it's already something I want to achieve. If I can do it and get rewarded for it, even better. So but 2-1, 2-1, stoked, absolutely stoked, and getting best presented as well. It was great that Tim got it in the last event, because his Lumineth are beautiful. Beautiful army, and missing out by a point last time, it shows that people can appreciate the army that I've got, and then obviously getting the trophy this time around was really nice as well. So So talking about your army, so this is definitely not the first army that you've painted. You've been in it for a while. How has your painting styles kind of developed? Like, what did you focus on for these models? What, like, color combinations or techniques? Like, what do you use that kind of differentiates your army from someone like me, who I paint to I like to think, a high tabletop standard, but it's not an award-winning paint. I'm not an award-winning painter. So what's that next step? What's that look like? Yeah, so I I picked up the Sylvaneth army, it was my child was due in December, so I knew that I had a lot of time on my hands because I've taken long service leave for the term. So I've been off since December. I go back in 2.5 weeks. I'm not really looking forward to it, but it's I knew I had a lot of time. So what I did was I researched a lot and looked up different techniques and looked up different ways of painting Sylvaneth. I think I looked at about 30 different iterations of Sylvaneth just to see what I wanted to do. My old Wood Elf army is autumn themed, so that was on the table for a while there to be a striking color scheme. But I know Hoops has been running Sylvaneth for a long time, and he had an autumn themed army. Autumn theme's also one of those armies where a lot of people, it's being done, they see it and they kind of walk past. So for me, I think the army lends itself to a really nice paint scheme, and so what I wanted to do was look up different painting styles and see which one would suit me. Contrast really became a point of I guess where I wanted to work to, is to say, okay, with contrast, what can I do with this army? And one Hidalgo, I don't know if anyone's heard of him or not, he's got a contrast painting series where basically he'll paint an army to really, he tries to do it to an heavy metal standard using majority contrast and then highlights from there. So he actually had a Sylvaneth video come out in maybe August or September last year. And for me, that was already, I saw that and I went, okay, I really want to do Sylvaneth. Gave it a go on the Underworld's Warband, so one of the characters there, just wanted to try it out, see how it went. I then kind of said, okay, well, the bark I wanted to use the contrast for because it was a really basic sort of way of doing bark and really quick. So it was a grey undertone, so grey undercoat, and working from there. So already it was brighter. It was going to be a brighter color than from black undercoat. And I really wanted to do just the spring thing style of Sylvaneth. For me, I think a lot of people move away from army book color schemes and codex color schemes because they feel, I guess, that they'll never do to an heavy metal standard, or they'll look at it and say it's boring. If people look
it's
at that,
the standard thing.
Standard, yeah, exactly. And so what I wanted to do was, my daughter's cane army, I've got some painting noms for before. It was all about using reds and then the green bases to use as an off color towards that. But what I found was that a lot of people walk past my daughter's cane army because it's darker colors. So I've gone with the darker skin tone, red is the pop color, and then green is the base. And it was kind of a Incubi darkness green. So a lot of people walk past it. So I thought, well, what's an army that I can paint to a standard like Sylvaneth that would then draw people's eyes? So I looked at, I think, 5 different YouTube channels just to see some different techniques. What I found was that I guess Games Workshop has created a really good strategy of saying, here's the 4 paints that you need. You go base, layer, highlight, done. And that's all you need. So I found a couple of YouTube channels that really worked for me, and the color scheme I kind of practiced a little bit. Started with the tree revs because I thought that would be a really nice army to start with. It had the natural bark tones, and that it would also have the ghost element to it as well. So again, that was playing around with the different color tones. So I ended up using the browns and greens, 2 different greens as well. So it was about the army khaki green as I guess the new offshoots of the branches, and the actual leaves I've used the dark angels to moot green sort of color, so it pops a little bit more. Then I needed to work out what my off color would be. So for the tree, so for the Kernoth Hunters and also for the bigger trees, it was about using the moot green watered down and putting that into the recesses so it looks like a glowing sort of effect. And then any of the gems was blue, and then the weapons and the ghosts ended up being blue as well. So that was just a matter of dry brushing up to a standard of nearly white, and it worked really well. And then contrast using as the tone to go over that as well. So it was again finding something that worked. The natural cool tones really works. And then I had the bases, they were all ready to go, put some grasses on there, and I thought it really needs something else. And so I picked up some railroad grass. So it was from Germany. I think it was one of those companies that just obviously train enthusiasts would buy and scatter it across, a 6x4, table, so it was quite a dense sort of thickness, and that managed to really fill out the bases. And I wanted the browns of the base to actually be, I guess you had to look for the stone on the ground. So I wanted it to be grass covering, and then picked up some flowers, some purple flowers as the other pop. So it actually then becomes about looking at, I guess, the old, I think I mentioned it to you, the old faces and bases rule from Warhammer Fantasy. So if you picked out the faces, then the bases, people will be drawn to your army. But for me, it became about picking out everything. So it was highlighting up to a standard where I guess every green was going up to almost a white sort of thing, so and a bone sort of color. So that was kind of the standard that I was going for, and the look as well. So.
Yeah, okay. So really no like absolutely crazy techniques. It's just kind of just keep it simple, do it well, and just consistently do it to a really high standard in every aspect.
Consistency's a big thing. Yeah, consistency I found, I guess because I had the time, I found the motivation, and once I had done the first 15 tree revenants, I kind of had them sitting on the table, and that was inspiration enough to say, yeah, I can finish this army. And then it was 1 Kurnoth became 9 Kurnoths because I had 6 with scythes originally, and then 3 bows, and then it was a character to try out and do this and do that, and then Alariel was the big kind of stepping stone. But the good thing was that I had done Marathi last year, so for me, I guess if you're a new painter, big models like that can be really daunting, and they can be overwhelming if you don't have a plan. And I really experimented a bit with her cloth. So her cloth ended up being a blue to match the weapons of the army. And initially I thought, well, is it going to work? Do I just go green? And again, it was kind of playing around with some different color tones there. But she was really, the elf in the army, whereas everyone else is a ghost or, some kind of, autonomous, army of some type. So she was the real flesh, and so that became kind of a center point for her, which was a lot of fun to paint as well.
Yeah, no, very nice. Like you definitely deserve the painting noms.
Thank you.
So yeah, it is one. It was like my pick for the best painted army on the day, and I'm a big fan of just simple done well. Some of the other armies that I like there, like I really enjoy Sean's Stormcast. I'm really liking what Barry's pulling out with his Stormcast. Both of their schemes are quite simple, but they're just nice, clean, precise. They're just done well, and it's just done up to that nice high standard. So, and yeah, I always love running these events because you get to see all the really cool armies that everyone is working on, and not having to worry about your own games means you've got time to go around and have a look and watch and see what's happening. So
and enjoy,
So did you enjoy the event? I'm assuming yes, but
absolutely. Cool. I've been to 2 now, and both have been equally enjoyable. Obviously, not getting the wins that I wanted to in the last one. Still walked away and said, you know what, got to play 3 different people. I don't always get to play as well. I'm regularly playing against Tim or Dave or Gary or Pat. Really high quality players who are running cutthroat lists to try out, and I know what those sort of games, how they're going to go down, and for me, playing different people all the time is great, and even if they are people I've played in the past, any chance to catch up with them is great, and having them as a regular thing as well, to say, I think I said it to Gabe in our podcast, to say that a 1 day is a lot easier for families, and it's easier to manage and say, yep, I can get to a 1 day event, as opposed to a 2 day where I've got to build up branding points or plan around weekend before and weekend after, and
get all the chores in advance. Get all the chores done on the Friday, and then you can go away for the weekend.
Exactly. So, and then it becomes exhausting as a result. So I think, and the other thing that I love is that you're doing it in 3 different locations as well. So you're doing it in Brisbane, Toowoomba, and Gold Coast, just so you're getting an opportunity for all the players. Particularly, we've got a great scene on the Gold Coast, a really cool group of people who play on the coast, and I think it's an opportunity for them to go to a 1 dayer as well. So it's a great time. You're doing an awesome job. Oh, another thing, the objective markers, they were fantastic. I posted on Twitter, I think the Saturday night, and just saying, here's my games, and I've had multiple people ask, where those objective markers come from. And so then I think in the Facebook post, I think I ended up tagging your group in it. So just to kind of say, here it is, go here. Because I'm already looking at getting a mat and the objective markers as well, because they were just outstanding. And I think that's something you brought in this time round, and wanted to see what it looked like. And even down in this, couple of photos here, you can see the objective markers blending really well in, and it makes you a better player as well, because you're not having the arguments. And like you said, I think at one point you're able to say, I can see how many models are on that objective here, and you were sitting down from 5 meters away, sort of thing. And, and it doesn't become a point of argument then, I guess, when looking at that. So
and that's one thing that I've kind of found in my years of gaming is the cleaner that you can make the game for both people. Not just like, oh, this is me like playing a little bit dodgy and being like really thinking, but just being able to say, cool, I've moved this unit, there are 6 models on the objective. Everything gets bumped, like models get bumped, everyone knows that happens. And then half an hour later, they're like, oh, how many models on there? Oh, there's actually only 5. It's like, well, we moved up 6. We said there was 6. You can clearly see there's 6. It doesn't matter. It was bumped.
The awkward conversation is gone from the whole moment, because even as you're walking onto the objective, you can say, yep, cool. We can clearly see how many people are here, even if you're towing the objectives. I think that's a really good tactic. A lot of people, they try to do it without those sorts of templates, and it becomes a bit awkward, because if I'm measuring higher than everyone else, it's 6 inches becomes a lot bigger when you're looking from the the maths behind it and everything. But it's it stops the awkward conversations, and I think that it was a really cool thing to see, and I'm sure that your next event will have more of them in action, and people able to buy them and that sort of thing. So I've already looked on your website; they're coming soon, so I'm prepared.
We've got all the stock. So there's about 500 kilos worth of them in my garage at the moment. The problem is packaging. It turns out that all the objectives are quite heavy, and so the packaging I had planned just wasn't up to scratch. And I'm not in the interest. I'm not in the business of trying to flip the products. I want to be able to offer quality products, and so I've got organising custom pizza box style boxes for them all. So you can keep them, and it's a permanent thing rather than just something you crack open and then you've got to kind of come up with your own solution. So but no, thank you very much. A lot of work has gone behind the scenes to get all them up and running. So it's always good to hear that people is being able to see the benefits of them. So
absolutely, and you were from the start. You said I want honest feedback on these, and I know that a lot of people have made comments on it already to say the blend into the board. Dave and I were looking at it just to see, like, mixing it up, does it change too much? And not at all. They blended really well. So it's a really cool concept as well. To unpack. So
excellent. Well, I think that's kind of everything that we had planned. So do you have any shout outs? I know you mentioned a couple of people already. So
I have, but I'll do the proper shout out. So first I'll do is Gabe. Gabe and I have a podcast together, the Runax. He has been working tirelessly on his Slanesh at the moment, and I know he got a couple of games in today and a couple of wins as well with the Slanesh. So he's in the position of trying to, beat the stats. He does a great job with his website and obviously with the teams as well at the end of the year. We'll be recording this week, so big shout out to him. Shout out to the Mango Boys as well. So Big D Kerr, he's always in my shout outs because the man is unreal. Can't wait to see him smash at Worlds and have a great time. So of course the rest of the Australian team as well, all the best. Can't wait to see how we go against the rest of the world. Will be really cool. The Dr. Tim, love him, play him nearly every week. He loves the game. He's trying out some different things. He's picked up the Beastmen, so can't wait to see them on the table at the next Gauntlet. Not the next one, maybe the one after, but can't wait to see him in action with that. The other Mango Boys, Al, the originals, Davey, all those boys that we have had years, Luke, everyone. And my opponents as well on the weekend. I can't thank them enough. Nicole's always a pleasure to play. Sean, can't wait to play at the next event because I'm sure he wants next revenge. So that'll be the big thing. But yeah, it's a great scene. Love seeing people come back. COVID's obviously still out there, and a lot of people are working around that and trying to get to as many events as possible. And I think it's great to see the world's healing and everyone, coming back to events and the regulars starting to pop up again and just having those catch-ups was really cool. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, excellent. Just following on from Gammie, I can highly recommend listening to his and Gabe's podcast, Runax Radio. I know pretty much the morning that it comes out, I listen to it on the way to work. My wife tries to call me. It's like, no, sorry, sweetie, Runax is coming out. I got to listen to this. It's fantastic. I absolutely love listening to it. The other person that I have to kind of follow on from Gammie about is everyone who's not coming to events because of COVID. So I'm consistently getting about 4 to 5 messages the night or the morning of a tournament saying, hey, I'm a close contact, I can't come. A huge shout out to those guys who are putting the health of the community above themselves. And that was a big thing at the start. We were debating actually canning the entire series because we didn't want to disadvantage people who are doing the right thing. So a huge shout out and thank you to everyone who is doing the right thing and is putting the community above themselves. It will be repaid. So we've got tons more events planned. I know Gabe runs an amazing teams event. I know Chris has just put up the tickets for Sydney Slaughter. There's Border Wars coming up. There's a Gauntlet every month until October, and then we've got the finals in November. We're looking to do a 2-dayer early next year. It's still in the works. We're experimenting with the idea of an open bar for rounds 2 and 3 on Saturday.
We spoke about that on the weekend. It was good fun.
So, so we're still figuring some stuff out about that. Whether or not it goes ahead, we're not sure. But everyone wants games, everyone wants tournaments, and everyone is being fantastic about all aspects of the community at the moment, which is awesome, and it's making it so easy to recommend this game and the wider community to people. I've had messages from people that I played games with 5-10 years ago saying, oh hey, I saw you running events in AOS, who should I talk to? And it's like, cool, where are you? I know someone in probably every kind of 50 square Ks of this person is an absolute gentleman and a scholar. You need to go have a chat to them, have a game against them. And then if we all do that, we can grow the community, get bigger, get better, and it just becomes more fun for everyone. So
Absolutely.
But the only other thing I'm going to plug is we have just launched the online store for PMTT. So check us out at www.polymathtabletop.com.au. We've got our online store there. We've got links to all our videos, and we've got the hobby blog that I am writing about just general gaming thoughts at the moment. But I am negotiating with a couple of people to get them on as guest authors as well. The other thing that if people are still paying attention, despite the fact that I told Gammie this is going to be about a 20-minute interview and we're about an hour in now, the next round of the Gauntlet is on the 10th of April up in Battle Station. So the event should be live at the time. So you can check it out on our page. For those of you who don't know, the event goes live on our page for a couple of days before it then gets shared with the wider community. So like, follow, subscribe, do everything, click all those buttons, and you'll learn about the stuff as soon as it's available. But I think that's kind of it. So until next time, guys.